Less than 24 hours ago, we have gotten a brand new addition to the list of changes in the alpha of the War Within. Quite a few adjustments to many hero talents and even straight up talent changes, like Frost Death Knight received quite a lot of changes. We have gotten many of the Druid hero talents being changed, being adjusted. Same goes for Mage. We have the highlight of the day for Priest being that now Shadow Crush now centering on your target rather than using a reticle to target a position on the ground. But amongst many of these, hero talent changes and talent reworks, especially Demonology continues its deep dive into getting reworked. The other major change is, of course, the addition of the Shaman Hero Talent Totemic, which is the mix of Enhancement and Restoration. Now, this is a tale of two specs because, surprisingly, actually, Enhancement Shamans gets the worst of the two with this new hero talent. Now, Totemic is quite the thematic addition for Shaman. You would be expecting some cool stuff to happen with your totems. However, Enhancement Shaman suffers from a problem quite a few other specs actually do have, like Holy Paladin or like Retribution Paladin, as well as Elemental Shaman, very similar to Enhancement, where your talent tree is a mix of two different things you want to try to do. So if you want to do a certain type of things, you have to start ignoring completely the other. In the case of Enhancement Shaman, it's the Stormbringer, more single target focused type of damage, which gets abandoned right now. And this is acceptable if you're going for a talent tree, a hero talent tree like Stormbringer. This is much more tied with elemental damage, with lightning bolt damage, as well as several buffs to your nature damage, etc., which can fit properly with your Storm Strike build on Enhancement. The problem with Totemic is that it's trying to do two things at once. Like, this tree has things like synergizing around your Lava Lash and creating a Searing Totem, more damage to your Hailstorm and Frost Shock synergy with reactivity. You also have more things to deal damage with your Searing Totem, but then you also have something that buffs your Fire Nova and your Lava Lash, while simultaneously also buffing your Storm Strike damage. Don't forget more buffs to your Wind Fury Totem, and why not more synergy around your cooldown, in this case Ascendance for Shaman. And the problem is Enhancement Shaman doesn't use all of these things at once. So you end up having a whole bunch of dead talents depending on the build. If you're playing around Lava Lash, you're not going to care about the Wind Fury node or the extra Storm Strike damage. The extra Flame Tongue damage is completely pointless. Another problem for Enhancement is that the major damage of your new Surging Totem is physical, which is not particularly good with the Shaman's Mastery. That doesn't include physical damage. So that seems to be the bane of Enhancement when it comes to this new hero talent tree. The fact that you're trying to play the Elementalist spec, which if you play that, you get the Storm Strike, Wind Fury, Ascendant talents being terrible because the Elementalist spec with Elemental Blast, etc., doesn't play around Storm Strike, or the other way around. If you're playing the Storm spec, the Lightning Storm Strike base spec, then all of the stuff like Lava Lash, Fire Nova, Hailstorm all become pointless. The problem with this hero talent for Enhancement is trying to fit the two different builds of Enhancement into a single hero talent tree, and doesn't work. As I said, it works better with Stormbringer, because Stormbringer doesn't even pretend, doesn't even try to add fire stuff in this build or elemental theme stuff in this build. It just goes straight down the lightning damage and Storm Strike damage and Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning synergy, which is what makes it more usable for Enhancement, not nearly as much this Totemic version. However, where things get better is for Resto. Resto had some doom and gloom around Farseer, didn't look like that great of an idea, these ancestors spawning off of your spells, basically like a Naru of your Holy Priest duplicating your spells, didn't feel like it was that great. However, Totemic has quite a few more cool additions to your build, starting with the quality of life of the initial capstone talent Surging Totem, which is a 20-second cooldown totem, which is going to be automatically cast Healing Rain every 5 seconds where allies are present, healing for also 30% more than a normal Healing Rain. And that lasts for 20 seconds, which means that you're going to be casting somewhat 5 different Healing Rains over the duration of this totem. This is already amazing quality of life. Healing Rain is actually a very good HPS spell for a shaman. The only reason why Healing Rain looks like, it's shit is because it has too long of a cooldown. This is a Healing Rain used once every 10 or so seconds. Now you're gonna have the option in the War Within to cast this about 3 times every 10 seconds. So the value of Healing Rain will go up by a lot. Other positive things around this is not just that, but it's also the fact that it's automatic. So technically speaking, you might not even need to talent into Healing Rain yourself, because this will be done by the totem already. You might get away with it in the raid, where you can skip these talents altogether and simply go through this way, but in Mythic Plus, you're forced to go through here if you want Acid Rain. That's where the cool stuff might happen in Mythic Plus, especially if the damage overlaps. Now, you enter Mythic Plus in a big pool, you put down your Surging Totem, and every 5 seconds you spawn a Healing Rain with Acid Rain AoE damage on top of the enemies. That would make it quite powerful if they can be overlapped in doing multiple instances of damage in Mythic Plus for a Resto Shaman. You do then have multiple powerful additions, although yes, we can agree there is a possible problem with Resto Shaman over the multiple expansions. It seems like we have been consistently leaned towards making Chain Heal stronger and stronger and stronger. For a period in Shadowlands, Riptide took over as your very powerful source of healing, Riptide plus Cloudburst Totem, but recently, especially after multiple tiny changes to Resto Shaman, starting with the super powerful Tidebringer, it has since made Chain Heal a super powerful tool for healing as a Resto Shaman, down to, being basically a third of all of your healing, plus also lots of this Cloudburst healing will also be Chain Heal itself. So, it's a very powerful heal. And then when you go down Totemic, you have things like now casting pretty much any of your totem gives you an instacast Chain Heal, which was a previous tier set bonus for Resto Shaman. You can choose a pretty decent passive effect like 3% more damage and healing whenever Surging Totem is active, which is always, because it lasts for 20 seconds and has a 20-second cooldown, which is also good for a healer because it gives you damage. So it's always nice for a healer to have talents to give you more damage. And we were talking about Chain Heal being more important in Totemic. It continues to be important. Chain Heal now jumps back to the totem, so it can jump an additional time. So on top of the talents you already have to add more jumps to your Chain Heal, either from Ancestral Reach, to add one target, you can play with Unleash Life to make your Chain Heal jump even more. You're also playing with Tidebringer for mana discount of Chain Heal. You can also then go further down to play with High Tide to not have healing reduction on your Chain Heal every time it jumps, and this one makes it even stronger. You do have extra value here with Swift Recall that can reduce the cooldown of the totem by 5 seconds if it is successful in what it wanted to do, which is pretty cool, particularly for the stun. We will have to see how Wind Barrier actually works, how big is the shield your totem gives you, and also can they be overlapped. Like, if I am about to get hit by a massive raid boss ability, can I just dump down my Cap Totem, my Earth Grab Totem, my Tremor Totem, and my Poison Cleansing Totem and get quadruple Absorb Shield from this talent? Maybe. We will have to see once this is actually introduced in the alpha. Very good overall for Resto. After, Cloudburst had received quite a lot of nerfs over time, now it's down to only storing 20% of all of the healing done. This one can help you by buffing it by an extra 25%. Talking about the power given to Chain Heal, guess what happens to Totemic Coordination? 30% more effectiveness from the Chain Heal of your totems, which is also very good for continuing to power up your Chain Heal. Increasing the duration of your Earth Living effect by 6 seconds is interesting, because if we go to the choices of shamans right now, not many shamans are playing with Earth Living, right? It's not a very often chosen choice amongst the last bracket of talents for Resto Shaman. So it's interesting that they would put this one here. The answer to this Earth Living effect increase is in Whirling Elements. Basically, whenever you put down your Surging Totem that is replacing your Healing Rain as a Resto Shaman, you have 3 circling orbs that get consumed once you do something related to the orb. Like the Water Orb makes your next Healing Wave or Healing Surge heal an extra ally. The air orb makes the cast time of your next healing spell reduced by 40%. And then the last one, the Earth Orb, your next chain heal applies Earth Living at 150% effectiveness to all targets hit. So now you don't even have to talent or use Earth Living weapon yourself. Every 20 seconds, every time you put down Surging Totem, you chain heal and you get a 6, 7, 8 targets, depending on how many targets your chain heal hit, Earth Living on them. All of this combined is very, very good for Resto Shaman. It's a mix of good in Mythic Plus, like for example adding more damage to your spec, but also giving your Surging Totem the automatic casting of Healing Rain over and over, which as mentioned gets tons of value in Mythic Plus as a Resto Shaman if you get to play with Acid Rain. One of the other very good passive bonuses, because it's kind of like a stealth buff that we already talked about back in Shadowlands once this was introduced, was the ability to get free instacast chain heals. It also allows you to do passively more damage, because now you can do your DPS, someone gets chunked, all you have to do is put down your Cloudburst or your Healing Stream Totem and an instacast chain heal is going to go off. Also, because you have your Surging Totem down, every 5 seconds Healing Rain will be cast. So it's going to be more and more passive healing, even more if you take Overflowing Shores to get passive healing, so you get to continue to do your damage, for example, as a Resto Shaman. So many more ways to get instacast abilities. You know, instacast Healing Rains multiple time, instacast chain heals thanks to Lively Totems. You already have your own instacast in the form of Riptide, so it further adds to your mobility as a Resto Shaman. This is a great overall hero talent for Resto Shaman with only 2 problems. One, it's a minor one depending on the playstyle you enjoy. As mentioned, it's very chain heal focused. A lot of this will have to go through picking up all of your chain heal buffs all around, right? To make sure your chain heal is as beefed up as possible, because it synergizes super well with the hero talent, which might be disliked by some players due to how chain heal focused the entire, healing profile of Shaman is. The other thing that is a bit disappointing is the defensiveness. Of course, there is still time, as we have just seen through this entire set of changes already, to change the default talents of Shaman. But even from the hero talent, there isn't much in the ways of defensiveness, in the ways of survivability, because this is the only hopium angle for Resto Shaman. Hope that this one is like a 10, maybe even 15% max HP shield. It needs to be a substantial absorb shield for this one to actually become very good. Because this way, as mentioned, you can time your totems with certain mechanics to get yourself an absorb shield. It might also be kind of cool to make previously useless totems in a fight actually have value, right? You're fighting a single target boss, you're fighting a raid boss, you have absolutely no use for Tremor Totem, you have no use for Cap Totem, you have no use for Earth Binding Totem or for Poison Cleansing Totem, but you can still take all of these totems because they can give you a neat absorb shield. That's the only possible savior right now for the defensiveness of Resto Shaman, because if this ends up being a completely pathetic 3% max HP absorb shield that does nothing, then as a Resto Shaman you go back being depressingly squishy overall, and not much is being given to you through this hero talent tree. But overall, it's definitely a massive win for Resto. I believe it's better overall than Farseer, also because it already plays on what you are already doing best right now, which is chain healing, and also the quality of life given by this tree is just too good. The instacast automatic healing rains every 5 seconds plus instacast chain heals is just very, very hard to beat in terms of quality of life for a Resto Shaman. So very big win for Resto in the next expansion. As mentioned, not as much of a big win for Enhancement, who already had it nice if you were already fine playing down the Stormbringer side of things around your Stormstrike and Lightning Bolt. Not nearly as much if you were a Lava Lash flame damage enjoyer, which the new Talent Tree Totemic doesn't really do too well in trying to mix and match both playstyle of Enhancement, ending up kind of being mid for both. So this was the new addition on the hero talents of Shaman, still not testable yet. Not all of these talents have been fully implemented yet. We have to wait until they go live, especially to check things like numbers, things like the values of some of these things, to see how good they actually are for the moment. But for today, on this reset day, on this Wednesday for EU, it's time to now leave each other again. Thanks, of course, as usual, to all of the Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel, which can, as usual, still be given completely for free. You can like and comment down below, as well as subscribe to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I kind of wanted to keep the windows open just to have the ASMR chill rain sound in the back, but I don't know, I thought it might have been too loud.